Here's the instructions for the new Behringer Wing Compact. First thing, you got to know where to hit the on button. You come around back. Like any other unit, the power is pretty much always by the cord. It starts with the dark screen initially, and then it powers up like this. First thing you would do is you would hit library, and you would decide which band is playing today. Now we got Thursday Night on the Town coming, so we're going to hit that one. And we're going to hit load. And yes, we have to confirm it. And the result is the board is set this way. Now if it was a different day, we decided we wanted to hit Mahoney's, and then we hit load. I'm going to show you this. I'm going to hit confirm. We have 12 sliders, and each slider has its mute and unmute button, and then you have a select button. That replaces all those other dials you used to have on an analog board. And the select button tells it that we're talking about that channel up here. Now watch as I'm changing pages here. We have 12 inputs, sliders, and you can see that they're labeled. This one says Steve, Laura, Sue, Dan, overhead mic. That's when Dan was at the drums. This is bass guitar. And so I'll stop there. So you go across the board. When you get to the end of the board, if you need more channels, you can go to page 2, and then the sliders move on their own, and they go right where you had them. And we typically have used 16 channels, so this shows you like wireless microphone, computer, and pastor's mic. We could even go to a page 3. I have nothing set up there, but we could. So we can do a lot of inputs. So back to our main page. When you're leading worship, whichever select button I hit, notice it changes everything up here. And now all those dials that used to be above the slider, when you hit select, it tells it that's the channel I'm talking about, and you can adjust things with the touch of a button. Like this is the EQ, and so if you want the lows boosted or the mids boosted or trimmed, you can literally grab and move things around as opposed to running dials. And so if I switch to this one over here, I hit the second button. Now we're with Laura. You can see her EQ is different than Steve's EQ. If you see the bass guitar, you notice this is what the professionals set up for the bass, and they have this thing called compression. And I don't know how to adjust that personally, and I'm not going to encourage you to make any changes there. We're going to work into this stuff later, but basically it helps the bass it takes out the icky things when it gets too intense in certain aspects of the ranges. I'm going to click acoustic guitar. I'm going to go back to, I want to see the EQ of that, compare that to the bass. Quite a bit different, right? And this is a mandolin or a fiddle, banjo. This is a drum hi-hat that came from the professionals. We didn't adjust that. This is the snare. So you see that the EQs are greatly helped by inputting from the professionals. And by the way, we proved it worked really good because we did Thursday Night on the Town with this exact setup, and then we had Citywide Service, Heritage Days. We could have cut a CD we just plugged in, I hardly made an adjustment, and things were ready to go. So the way that things work when you're running a digital soundboard, first of all, if you have the band up and you have your vocals here, notice they're in blue, and I chose to make guitars are in red. And then like this is other things like the drums, they're in kind of a peach. And when you go to the next page, and typically by the time the sermon comes, now we're using the wireless mic, the microphone, and the pastor, so that's on page 2. I'm going to go back to page 1. This shows you that this is all pertaining to the main. And by the way, there's this little screen over here, but see how it's blue? And that's because under bus, we have none of these buttons pushed. These are 16 buttons we can program. But here, it's blue. But if I push number 1, now it's green, and it says monitor front. One thing that radically changed, and it's a super good blessing, is when we want to adjust the monitors, now we have a visual way to look at, Steve's monitor was turned down because we were getting feedback. We had to turn Laura up. She was the lead vocal on the last song. And when someone says, could you turn my monitor up or down in the front of the stage? Well, notice it's monitor front because I chose 1 under buses. Instead of aux 1, it's bus 1. And right there, because I chose that, and you can see that's what we're referring to, now I can adjust this up and down, and that would adjust Steve's. But if someone says, well, I want my monitor turned up in the back of the stage, so I push 2, and it says monitor DR bass, so drums and bass. So that's what our aux 2 always was, as it was by the drums and the bass. And so that's a different mix, and again the sliders adjust accordingly. But if I go over here and I push 2 and now nothing's pushed, notice it went back to the main speakers. So you can see under this little menu here that we can get it to, this tells us what our options are. 1 is monitors front, 2 is drums bass, second monitor is behind backstage. 6 is live stream, which we'll talk about in a bit. But 3 and 4, it sends them to those outputs. If we ever needed them to have a 3rd and a 4th monitor mix, we could. And then you would just push 3 and it would show up. Notice they're all muted. They're up, but they're muted. Notice this is the master volume for aux 3 right here. And so we have that for the future. But again, going back to monitor 1, if I push that, notice this is the individual channels where we adjust the monitors, and you can visually see that, for example, the mandolin was out of the monitor during that time, and that's why this was down. That's what that one is. But over here is your master volume, so you can turn up your overall volume on the monitors there. But again, if none of these are highlighted, then notice it's blue. That's the main speakers. So there's your main mix volume. Here's your individual mix volumes for each of these. So again, we have 12 channels that are showing. You get to 13 through 24 here. Currently we've only been doing about 16, but now we can add other channels, no problem. But we'll go back to the ones we're using, that like for worship, because 13 through 24 is kind of what we're doing for the presentation part of it, like the pastor. And you see the sliders, you can adjust the volumes for each. If someone says, hey, I need you to turn me up on the front monitors, I need more acoustic guitar. Well, there's your acoustic guitar, but you would come over here and say, okay, I want monitors front, so that's number 1. And so now notice, instead of these little dials that you have to turn, you have sliders, and you can visually see, oh, okay, here's your acoustic guitar, I'll turn that up in the monitors. How does that sound? Or if they say, well, turn up the overall volume of the monitors or turn it down, here's your master volume for the monitors. And you know it's monitors because it's green and it says monitors front. And someone says, well, actually, now that you did that, I can't hear the acoustic in the back monitors. So monitors by the drum and bass. Then we would say, okay, I'm going to turn the acoustic up there. And again, here's your master volume for the monitors, drums, bass. When you're done and you want to get back into the main mix, you just have to make it so none of these are engaged. So now that automatically puts you on the main speakers, which is blue. Okay, one thing you need to know about is sometimes people say, I need phantom power. Well, you would say, what do you need it on? Well, in this case, it's not the mandolin, no phantom power. It's the banjo, and it's right there. And you might wonder, well, how did we get that to turn red? Well, we'll go back to mandolin, and what you got to do is you got to hold it for 2 seconds. Did you see that time clock went around, and now we have phantom power just on that channel. Some things need that, like some direct boxes need power, some guitars, different, like a mandolin sometimes. It just depends. The musician should let you know if they need phantom power. I'm going to shut that off because that isn't what we need. So a couple things you'll want to know. There is available things like you can change the effects, which will add those in here, and then you can adjust the effects. We don't do much with meters or anything with meters. Routing you should leave to me or someone else that gets signed off to adjust, but we can make any one of these get the input from somewhere totally, like you could totally switch it up. Your snake doesn't have to be 1 through 16 or whatever. We could reroute it anywhere. We could have coming out the back of the board here, which is called local. We could have it right up front there. You might notice there's a box on the front of the stage. There's one on the back of the stage that we could route it to. There's a sky's limit on that, and therefore we don't want anybody to mess it up by pushing the wrong button. There's a lot of things we can adjust under setup, and then there's library. Library is where you come in, and this is where you would start your day. At the beginning of the day, you would come in here. You can, like for example, let's say Mahoney's are up. These are called snaps. You want to be under snap here, not show or snip or clip or effects, but snap. And you would choose, let's say Mahoney's are up, and then you hit load, and it says, do you want me to confirm that? And you would say yes. And now it's a different mix. But again, I'm going to go back to, we were doing outside Sealars, Dan, Heritage Days. That's the one we're going to load. And now we're back to the one that I had just set up, that I had originally shown us when we started this video. And when you get in here, and sometimes when you're pushing buttons up here, you're like, oh my goodness, where am I? What do these things do? I'm lost. Where's that screen where I adjust things? What you're supposed to do is click your heels together and say, there's no place like home.
Then close your eyes and tap your heels together 3 times. And think to yourself, there's no place like home. There's no place like home.
There's no place like home. There's no place like home.
Darling.
Oh, honey, it's you.
No place like home. And you push the home button. And now you have what you should be used to, which is, hey, 11's chosen, which that is this one right here. You can see it's green, it's selected. But I want to deal with Steve's mic, which is number 1 over here, so I push 1. Notice it's green. I want to mute this thing. Notice it's red. And I unmuted it. And then in here, for example, if you want to adjust the gain, I touched it and let it know that's what I'm talking about. And then there's this dial over here, and I turned it right here. There's also some adjustments you can make down here with EQing and things like that. But if you want to adjust the gain, which we used to have a gain knob, now we touch it and we adjust it. Same thing, we're back. I'll show it again. Here's Laura. And let's say her gain's a little high because it's at 38. I have to touch it. Notice it's Laura 2, 38. And then I adjusted it. Now it's at 30.5. And the reason this gets to be really important is when you're dealing with a digital board, it just takes a little getting used to that it can't read your mind. You have to tell it, I'm talking about 3. Okay, we're on 3. And you'll do it, I've done it, we all do it. You're going to end up turning dials and thinking, why doesn't it change? Why doesn't it change? Well, it's because in your mind you thought you told it something, but you actually didn't. And so if you want to adjust Sue, number 3, and adjust her gain, you have to choose 3 and adjust her gain. Now another thing I want to show you is just as you have individual sliders per channel, that's again like for the main because it's blue, or same thing, that's monitors because I just chose monitors under bus 1, and now it's green up there. You also have a master mute. You can mute all of aux 1, and you could switch over to 2 and mute all of aux 2, and you could get out of it because again nothing's pushed, so therefore it's defaults to the main speaker. And now I've muted all outputs. There's nothing's going to go out of this board. And so if you ever have a time where nothing will go through, see if someone did the mute over here over the master slider. Now I'm going to undo all that. And now we have a board that's not muted, and we're ready to go. Just in the back there, it's on 2. And now I took it out of 2, and it's out. So that's the rear monitors. That's the front monitors. And again, you can tell by looking here, it says monitor front, and I push number 1. And again, this is the mains, so now I'm going to bring the mains in. The next thing you need to know is in all the different buses and in the main, you can mute the overall with this button over the main slider. So for example, if you were playing music and you hit this, that'll mute it. Now if I go under bus, notice it's under main speaker currently, but if I go 1 is monitor fronts, I can mute that. And notice, okay, now my front monitor would be muted. Now if I go monitor 2, see it says monitor drum bass, which is the back monitors. Now that would be muted. So I showed you 4 buttons here that could make it so no sound comes out. It's your mutes on each of the main channels. And then if we take it away and go main speaker, it's that mute. So one trick you'll want to know is to use headphones, and headphones are accessed here. See, it says headphones. You look down here and you plug it in right there. And now, because you're plugged into the headphones, you can solo things. So we were in live stream, want to get out of that. Now we're on main speaker, and when you hit solo, that's going to send it the signal where you'll see the readout here, and you'll see the readout over here of what kind of a signal you're getting. So if you want to compare your vocals to see how they're sounding, then you can push solo here and listen to them. Now the phone's headphone level is here. So there's a couple other things. There's different view buttons. Here we're able to view, like for example, what's going on with because I push view next to the phones. Now I can adjust that, and you can see what's there's some different settings here, like that's monitors. If you had those hooked up, but we don't. That's a different kind of monitor, in case you're wondering. And so we'll go back to phones. So I'll turn that down. And then if I hit view again, now we're back to the normal view. There's this view button, and that's going to give you the readout of the details that are going on pertinent to over here. And you can put them on the screen. And then again, you undo it with view. And here you can hit view, and it'll show you the overall. That's kind of like your mix view, which shows you, this is a nice look. You can either go with home, where it's per channel, or mixed view, where you see all the channels. And then of course you can access what you had before by clicking on the individual home button of each of those. But let's say you're in view, you don't have to hit view to get out. You can hit home. Again, it's always no place like home. The last thing is, let's talk about shutting down. So when it's time to shut down, the way we're going to shut down is with, first of all, this one, you're going to power it down after you've done everything you need to do for shutting down live stream. And because I'm going to lose power entirely, I'm not just going to hit sleep, I'm going to hit shutdown. And then because that's going to lose power when I hit this power strip, I'm going to push this button right here. It's all lit up, and now we've lost power for the whole overall system.